Hi guys, my name is Great Aurelius 2, and today I want to ask the question, is it worth upgrading from an Oculus Quest to a Meta Quest 3? Now, I got this guy back in 2020, in February of 2020 at that. And I had my first VR experience in like 2019. Later in 2020, I decided I wanted to get this guy. And since 2020, I've barely used VR. I've had very little playtime in VR. And I also got a Valve Index at the end of 2020, literally the very end, December 31st, the end. I got a Valve Index because the Oculus Quest isn't a very comfortable headset. Now at the time, I wasn't wearing any glasses, so I didn't really have any problem with wearing glasses. But what I did have a problem was the fact that the Quest is a very heavy headset, and so it really pulls down on your head. So you've got like neck straining issues, and then it also like back of the head with the strap. And so back in 2020, I heard that the Valve Index was the most comfortable headset. So I decided I wanted to go ahead and try that out. But then I realized I didn't want to keep doing it. I didn't want to keep playing VR games using a Valve Index. So I returned it. And since 2021, I rarely got into VR. Recently, Assassin's Creed Nexus released. And also, so there were two games that I was really interested in playing. That is Horizon Call of the Mountain and Assassin's Creed Nexus. Horizon, because I'm a big fan of the Horizon games, and I'm also a fan of Assassin's Creed. But from what I've heard about Horizon Call of the Mountain, first of all, it's on PSVR 2. And there's not really much on PSVR 2. And Assassin's Creed Nexus, I heard, was actually a full-fledged game. And I saw some reviews, and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? I really want to give this a try. I really want to try this game. But it required buying a $500 VR headset. Or, technically, I could have gotten a Quest 2 for $250. But really, if I'm going to buy a brand new headset, I'm going to get the newest one that's going to last me a lot longer rather than getting the last gen one for half the price. And, you know, going from a Quest to a Quest 2 does not seem as big of a difference as going from the Quest to the Quest 3. So I wanted to go ahead and give you, I haven't seen any like Quest versus Quest 3 comparisons. So I just kind of want to talk about, is getting a Quest 3 over an older VR headset really worth it? So let's first talk about the size of these things. So the size of these things. This guy is actually, you can see right here, the Quest is significantly larger than the Quest 3. And I think there's some technical specs on it. I don't really know all the big details. I know like this uses pancake lenses, this uses an old lens or whatever. What do I know about any of that? But what I can say that is this headset is a little bit more comfortable because it's not so long. So that means like the center of balance is more like in the middle here, which is further from your face, which means pulling down more. Whereas the Quest 3 is going to be closer to your face and is going to be a little bit easier, or it's going to be a little bit more comfortable as it's not pulling down on your face quite as much. As far as I'm aware, the Quest 3 and the Quest are roughly about the same size, or roughly about the same weight. And the head strap, I think the head strap on this is a little bit comfortable, as it is more of a solid head strap that conforms, where this is more of like a fabric head strap. Which for putting on the headset, this is not as ideal as the Quest. And with the Quest, it is quite literally as simple as boom, and it's on. Versus the Quest 3 is going to look something more along the lines of like that. Of course, with Of course, with glasses, get my hair all messed up. Of course, with glasses, you got to be a little bit more careful with the actual like putting on the headset, because you don't want your glasses or the lenses to scratch. Now, the other thing I can also say is that the field of view is a lot better on the Quest 3, and you don't have the screen door effect, at the very least, as much. So the Quest 3, I think, definitely looks a lot better. And the other thing I do want to mention is going to be mixed reality. Now, as far as I know, and I haven't had this for too long, but as far as I know, there isn't really much mixed reality out there. At least no real games. There's First Encounters and First Hand. Now, these are mixed reality, so they show you the whole room that you're in. And I think it's really cool, the mixed reality, because I feel much more comfortable walking around my own room when I see all of the things in my room, so I know where things are and how far away I am from everything. And so having those games where like they place like virtual objects in your room, to me, that is awesome. That is really cool. Versus like in VR, which you're fully immersed, and like I am much more likely just to want to stand still and not want to move around too much, because I don't like hitting the barriers, right? It kind of breaks the immersion a little bit. So I just want to kind of stay in the same place as much as possible. But the one thing I will say, the biggest selling point is going to be the games. Now, back in the 2010s or in the early 2020s, as far as, what was available on the Quest. So the problem I had with the games on the Quest were that they were either tech demos, they were amusement park rides, they were too short, or they were casual games, which is fine for like putting on the headset for the first time, like Beat Saber, for instance. That is a fantastic like first experience for VR, but it's also a casual game. It's a game that you can just pop on, play for about 10 minutes and then be satisfied and take the headset off. Not something that's going to want to keep you in the, at least a gamer like me, I'm not going to want to stay around and play Beat Saber all day until the battery on the headset dies. I don't want to do that, Another example would be Job Simulator, another fantastic introduction into VR. Those two games were the games that introduced me to VR. And those are games that I would say almost essential for everyone to get. But they're pretty casual games. They're not really something to really get you in there and everything like that. And then you have games like Vader Immortal, which came with the VR headset. That is an amusement park ride. It's essentially it's a scripted, it's a very linear game. It's like, okay. Well, and then there's also Super Hot VR, a game that I personally think works better in VR than works on like the regular game on PC. I actually found out that they had the PC version after I found out about the VR version, and I like the VR version a lot better. The VR version seems a lot more fitting and seems like it feels more made for VR than it does for PC. So I think those are great games, but the problem is Super Hot is just so short. It's just there's a bunch of levels. It's an indie game. It's very short. Here's the thing. Or I guess another thing I don't like about some of these games, a lot of them are horror. There's a lot of horror games, which is great for VR if you like horror, because that's putting like the horrifying stuff right in your face instead of having, it's a lot of the immersion, which is great for people who love horror. I am not. I like some horror movies. I am not someone who wants to see zombies in my face. Thank you very much. That is actually one of the reasons I tried playing Boneworks. I've tried several times, and I cannot get into Boneworks because the wireframe dudes act like zombies. In my brain, those are zombies. And that is extremely off-putting for me. I cannot work with that. It's something that's it makes me extremely uncomfortable. Now, the good news is I actually don't really get any of the motion sickness. I can move around just as just fine using the thumbsticks without the blinkings. Like some of the older VR games only have that blinking. Some of them have multiple options and whatnot. And for people who do get motion sickness, those extra options are fantastic. But for me, just being able to move around with the thumbstick and not having to teleport everywhere is great. It helps keep the immersion that you're in the game. Now, one thing I do want to mention for games on the Meta Quest 3, I have not bought very many games for the Meta Quest 3. I probably only got 2 games so far. And I haven't really played much of those games. But what I can say, the 2 things that sold me on the Meta Quest 3 was one, well, I haven't even touched Assassin's Creed Nexus yet, but the reviews I've heard and wanting to play Assassin's Creed Nexus, that's the thing, that's the reason why I bought this in the first place. But the thing that kept me from returning my Meta Quest 3 was Asgard's Wrath 2. It's a game that came with the Meta Quest 3, or at least when you go in there, it'll be like, hey, you get it for free. And I was like, cool. I didn't know what this game was. And I decided, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and try this. I heard it's like an RPG or whatever. I tell you, man, I tell you guys, one of the very first things you do in the game, like after you're like opening cutscenes and everything like that, the very first thing you do is you fight. Don't come at me if I get this wrong. I think it's a griffin. I could be wrong, but basically you fight a griffin. And let me tell you what. Let me tell you something, okay? This was the first time where I had actually played what I would consider to be a real game in VR. Now, I've barely played this game, and I'm actually going to wait a little bit before I actually really delve into it, because apparently it's like a 60 to 90 hour game, which has me pumped, man. It has me pumped, because a 60 to 90 hour game means that it is a genuinely, like an actual open world, okay, I could be wrong about it being open world, but I think it's an open world action RPG in VR, and that is my jam. That is the type of games I love to play, and then they have that in VR. Now, is it in PS3 graphics? Yes, it is, and you know what? I'm fine with that. In VR, the thing you kind of get used to is the fact that, especially like with the Quest, like everything is going to be more like stylized, and there can be lower resolution graphics, and I'm fine with that. These are like earlier generations. These guys, like, they can't run like PS5 graphics. That's fine. This is a whole new way of doing gaming, and it's like you're going from like handheld gaming, for instance. Handheld gaming, they really had to pull things back because they could put the power of a full console in a handheld. It's kind of the same thing with a VR headset, especially when this right here is the entire thing. This is the computer. This is the system, and it's the display, and it's the battery. That's insane. And it's the tracking. Yeah. So that's the thing that really kind of sold me on this. And that's the reason why I'm going to go ahead and stick with this $500 headset, is because I have finally found games that I would play that are my jam on an Oculus headset. And, at some point, I hope that Horizon Call of the Mountain would come to Oculus at some point. Or, I keep calling it Oculus. It's called Meta now. My goodness, I had just realized that I keep calling this Oculus. It's Meta. It's Meta Quest, not an Oculus Quest. That's an Oculus Quest because it was Oculus when that was made. This is a Meta Quest because the company's called Meta now. The Meta Quest. This is, and also the hand tracking on this guy. It's decent enough. It's not like super accurate, but it's enough where I can put the headset on and I don't have to put the controllers on, and I can like do swiping and whatnot. You have full color pass through, which means like I feel like I can actually see my environment around me instead of with the Oculus Quest. It's like kind of like a really grainy, hazy black and white. Like you can kind of make out the details just a bit. This is a full color passer. Does it look as real life? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They're more kind of lower resolution cameras than you might see on this video, for instance. But otherwise, I think there is, at the very least, the upgrades are going to be with the games that are on there. And if you are a person who has had an older VR headset and you don't really have any reason to get into a VR headset, but you're still interested in VR, you're just, this might be the thing to get you back into it. Or maybe it's a Quest 2. Maybe it's mostly going to be the games, but maybe it's the Quest 2. This does have a wider field of view and better resolution than the Quest 2. So this might be the better option for you. And this is probably going to last a little bit longer. But now games are actually coming, like real games are coming to VR. At least real games in the sense of games that I play as a PS5 and PC gamer. These are coming to the Quest. And these games like Assassin's Creed Nexus and Asgard's Wrath 2, those games are exclusive to the to the Meta Quest 2 and 3 and Pro, to the Quest series, and not the original Quest. That's where these are, and I think as for my verdict, I'm not going to return this guy. I'm even going to invest in a more comfortable head strap and some other accessories, especially lenses, so I don't have to wear my glasses in VR. But was it worth the upgrade? I think so, but in reality, time will tell. I've got at least 2 games that'll keep me occupied in this guy. And then I also logged into my PC and found out that they also included Asgard's Wrath 1, which is exclusive to, which was for the Rift series, or the Oculus Rift back in the day, which was PC VR. And I was surprised to find that it was on PC VR. And I have the Meta app on my PC. And I logged in, and there it was. And I was like, oh, I could just download this, and I could play it for free. So I've got probably like 3 games that I can play in this guy. This guy can also link up to Steam VR, which is great because I can also, once I finally get the nerve, I can try Half-Life Alyx. I can try PC VR games. So with this guy, you could try Oculus PC VR games that were for the Rift and Rift S. You could try any of the Meta Quest games, and you can play Steam VR. The only thing you're locked out of is PSVR 2, which, as far as I'm aware, there's very little on PSVR 2. So, anyways, I'm going back in the headset. So, toodaloo, and I'm gonna play some games.